Hello, YouTube. It's been a minute or a few months. um, I am going to talk to you today about my baby. I mentioned before, I think in one or two of my previous videos, that um, I gave birth to a baby girl. I lost her the same day. She made a huge impact in my life and in a lot of people's lives for only being here for a short time. But October is Infant Loss Awareness Month. I believe the specific day is October 15th. So I'm going to tell her story. I'm going to try and get through it. So I was, I think I was still engaged at the time. I did marry her father. We're obviously since divorced. And anyway, so, okay, where do I start? I'll start with, I used to be, as some of you know, again, from me mentioning in previous videos, I used to be extremely overweight, and then I got the pancreatitis and ended up losing a ton of weight. So anyway, when I was heavy, I was also diagnosed with PCOS and had pretty bad, and was told that I wouldn't be able to have children, and it was pretty devastating to hear. So when I got pregnant, I didn't actually know I was pregnant. And people are probably like, how could you not know? Like, come on. But, you know, you see that show, I didn't know I was pregnant or whatever, and it happens. So what started everything was, I guess I'll start with the day I went into labor, because, like I said, I didn't know I was pregnant. I had been getting pains in my belly all day. I attribute it to the pancreatitis. It was similar pains, right? And I remember walking through the mall with my then fiance and like having to stop and squeeze his hand at one point because it hurt so bad. And then he got pissed because I hurt his hand, but he was a little arse anyway. Won't get into that. That's a whole other story time. So that night, again, home, we watched movies, cramping off and on, which was labor. It then started getting pretty bad, and I just said to him that I was going to try and go to bed for the night. And if I still had the pain in the morning, I would go to the hospital. Again, thinking it was my pancreas. So I went into bed, and it wasn't long after, I don't even think it was a half an hour, and I got back up and I screamed for him. And I was having, just like I said, severe pain, and I started heading to the bathroom because I just felt like my insides were coming out. That's the only way I can explain it. And so on my way to the bathroom, which wasn't far, it was only like, 8 feet or something like that, she dropped, and I literally like crossed my legs in the hallway again. Thinking my insides were coming. I just didn't know. I mean, honest to God, pregnancy was the last thing. It wasn't even in my mind. So I screamed for him to call 911 because I thought I was dying. And I went and I sat on the toilet because my mind, I was thinking, well, if I'm going to make a huge mess, like if I'm going to be bleeding, at least, I'll be able to keep it clean and sit on the toilet. And I just sat on the toilet, and I just had a biggest urge to push. And it was literally one push, and I mean, I can't even explain that feeling. I don't even remember. Like, it's like I blocked it out, but then it was like I looked and there she was. And I obviously, I mean, I grabbed her as, I mean, she was in the toilet, as terrible as that sounds. So I grabbed her. The cord was wrapped around her neck. I moved that. I remember screaming to my partner at the time to call the ambulance back and tell them I had a baby. And I got her down. I had a towel. She was still attached to me through the umbilical cord. And I was on the floor with her. And the ambulance bay was literally 30 seconds down the road from my apartment. So, I mean, this was happening so fast. And then, like I said, I was on the floor with her. And I looked at her and I mean, her face was perfect. Her belly was a little swollen. And she had some bruises on her head. And she had an extra toe as well. And I knew looking at her, something wasn't right. She was breathing. So when the ambulance got there, they were shocked. I just kept saying, I remember being on the floor and saying over and over again, I didn't know, I just didn't know, I didn't know, it just over and over. And my partner at the time also called my parents, my dad and my stepmom and my mom. And my dad and my stepmom had showed up at the same time as the ambulance. They weren't prepared to have me and a baby. When I screamed for him to call to say that I had the baby, they had already left at that point. There was no, I mean, like I said, they were 30 seconds away. So a woman, EMT, came in and they cut the umbilical cord, wrapped the baby in that silver blanket type thing, and ran to the ambulance. And so then there was a male EMT there left to get me, and I told them I could walk. It was fine. I could walk to the ambulance, but they wouldn't let me. And I lay down on the stretcher, and it was my dad and my fiance at the time and the EMT that got me up the stairs. They had to help because the woman was in the ambulance with the baby. So they got me in, and I just remember it was such a bumpy ride. And again, I don't remember things. That I got into labor and delivery room, and the baby was taken from me to try and assess what was going on with her. Oh, I was going to say too, when I had her on the floor and I was looking to see if she was all right, I also saw that she was a girl. She had the perfect bow lips, and she had a head full of black hair. I'm sorry. So I'm in the hospital laying there. My family is there. My mom is there. The doctor came in to me. No, that was after. I'm sorry. The doctor that was looking after the baby wheeled her in an incubator. And a split second, I thought, okay, there she is. She's okay. We're probably going to have to be airlifted to a hospital in another province because I'm from a small province in Canada, and we just don't have the stuff needed to look after a baby that's that hard off. But he quickly told us that he couldn't get her oxygen levels elevated, and he didn't know why, and there was nothing they could do. So she had a tube. She had a tube in her nose and a tape on her face, and he took the tape off, and he took the tube out, and he handed her to me. And I still don't think it was registered. Well, it wasn't registering. I couldn't believe that I had given birth. So he passed her to me. And I stared at her. I looked at her. I tried memorizing everything I could. She didn't open her eyes, but I wanted to see her eyes. So I opened them just so I could see. My mom was in a lot of shock, and She didn't hold her, but she, touched her, looked at her, and I think she was more concerned for me. My dad and stepmom held her. I have the most beautiful picture of them holding her and looking at her. I'm sorry, I did not want to get emotional. But it's hard not to. So they handed her back to me. My partner didn't hold her. I think he was in shock too. So I held her. And again, I stared at her, and they took pictures. And at the time, I remember thinking it was kind of weird, but I am so, so thankful that they do that and that they did that for me. So I was holding her. It was probably a few hours. Well, it was about 4 hours since she had been born. And she gasped in my arms. She gasped for air. And I thought, oh my God, she's trying. But it was actually her last breath. And she passed away in my arms. I'm sorry. We named her Gabrielle after the angel Gabriel, but we spelled it the female version. But we would have pronounced it. Well, it's pronounced Gabriel, but it was spelled Gabrielle. Allie was her middle name, Gabrielle Allie. She weighed 3 pounds 2 ounces, and she was going to be a long baby like her mama. She was 17 inches long. I was 22 inches long when I was born. It turned out I was 7.5 months along. But the reason that you couldn't really tell, I mean, I was a bit heavier than I am now too. I was about 206 pounds. And we found out after, they did an autopsy, obviously, she didn't have kidneys. And so that causes the mom to not get any amniotic or barely any amniotic fluid. So, I didn't have that big belly, big pregnancy belly that would have given it away. Looking back, there were times when I probably, I wouldn't say should have known. There were signs. Looking back, they say hindsight is 20/20, right? I remember grocery shopping once and leaning into the cart and my belly hitting the cart first and thinking, oh my God, I must be putting on weight. And another time, my cousin was down. It was just a couple of weeks before she was born. And I thought I had gas, and I actually lifted my shirt to her, and I said, oh my God, look at the gas move in my belly. And it was actually Gabriel moving. And I had a cat that would always sleep on my belly, always, especially when I had a specific blanket over me. And I remember one day he hadn't done it for the longest time, and I was laying on the couch and patting my belly for him to come, and he put his paw on my belly, and then he lifted it off really quick, and he jumped over me, and he would not lay on my belly. He knew, but I didn't. Anyway, yeah, so that's what happened with giving birth to Gabriel. Sorry. She wasn't here for very long, 4 short hours. We had a funeral at the hospital chapel for her. About 40 people came. My family was all there to see her. She's buried in an area where there's family plots. She next to a cousin that also passed away in infancy, and next to her great grandparents, and now her grandma, my mom, who's buried next to her. And again, I didn't know, but I have so much love for that little baby. And I like telling her story. I like people asking me about her, so please feel free to ask anything. I probably missed a lot because it's pretty traumatic to talk about. But I'm glad to share her story because I need to live for her and share her story because she's not here. And I strive to be a good person in this life for her. I need to live the best life I can for her because she can't. She was unfairly taken and she didn't have that chance. So that's my story. That was a tough one. I'll leave you with that. I hope if anyone's new here watching, subscribes. Hello to the 15 people who have subscribed to me and watch my videos. I really, really, really appreciate. And like I said, leave a comment. And I hope you all have a nice day. And if you know somebody who's suffered infant loss or miscarriage, just be there for them. Let them open up to you. Some people do not like to talk about it. Don't push on that. I do like to talk about it, and I let people know that. So I hope you all have a nice day, and I'm going to try and come back sooner than a couple of months, and the next video, I promise, will be a happy one. So have a good one. Peace and love.